My life was perfect, or so I thought. I had a loving husband and a wedding to plan. Little did I know, my world would come crashing down on the day I was supposed to say, I do. I love your sister, my husband said on our wedding day. Wait, I don't have a sister. Who was this woman claiming to be my sister? Shocked, I canceled the wedding ceremony and made a revenge plan. What was the plan they could never imagine? My husband's betrayal and the shocking truth about the woman he claimed was my sister would change everything. But I refused to let them win. I would have my revenge, and they would never see it coming. It didn't take long for their faces to turn pale. My name is Sierra, a 29-year-old office worker. I currently live with my husband Justin, and we have our wedding ceremony scheduled for next month. From the outside, it may seem like I'm at the peak of happiness, or at least, that's how it should be. However, I was grappling with a very serious problem. One evening, Justin came home late and called out, "I'm home." "Hey, something smells good. What did you make?" I replied, "What do you mean?" "It's just an omelet, but..." Justin exclaimed that he loved omelets and wanted to eat. I reminded him, "Listen. You're the one who told me this morning that you didn't need dinner at home because you had a work dinner tonight, right? Since you said you didn't need it, of course I didn't make anything." Justin whined that he wanted an omelet and told me to make one now. I pointed out that I had work early the next morning and didn't have time to make an omelet at this hour, asking if he knew what time it was. He guessed. Around 1 a.m. I confirmed it was indeed the middle of the night, and that I had waited until the last minute thinking he might come home hungry after all, but he had returned reeking of alcohol. Justin argued that it couldn't be helped since it was a work dinner and told me not to get so irritated. I retorted that it would be weird not to be irritated in this situation, complaining that he came home late every single night using overtime or work dinners as an excuse, and then showing up dead drunk. Dealing with a drunk was stressful for me too. Justin pleaded with me not to say such cruel things, claiming he was working late every day for my sake as his wife. He asked if I hated him. I sighed to myself, knowing that when he looked at me with those puppy eyes, I couldn't say anything. But with him coming home this late every day, I couldn't help but be plagued by the thought that he might be cheating on me. My best friend since high school, Kristen Smith, once told me, "Your husband might be cheating, right? You should definitely confirm that before going through with the wedding ceremony." Kristen and I knew everything about each other's dating histories, to put it mildly. I asked her how I was supposed to confirm it. Kristen said there were lots of ways, like hiring a private investigator or going to a detective agency. I hesitated, saying that seemed a bit much. Kristen insisted I absolutely should go that far. I explained that we were already married, so even if I confirmed whether my husband was cheating at this point, it would be a hassle. Plus, with our wedding ceremony coming up next month, it would be a big problem if we had to cancel it now. Kristen sighed, saying I had always been like this when it came to love. I asked what she meant. She said I was too cool or something when it came to romance. I clarified that if he actually was cheating on me, even I would be angry. I just didn't think it was something I needed to go out of my way to investigate. Kristen sighed and said that's what she meant by me being too cool about it, but if I was okay with it, she would stop nagging me. Deep down, I did want to know if Justin was actually cheating on me. However, even if I investigated it, I still couldn't bring myself to consider canceling the wedding ceremony. Even after that, no matter how many times I brought it up, Justin didn't change. But I was so busy every day with work and wedding preparations that I gradually spent less time worrying about Justin. And finally, the day of our wedding ceremony arrived. I let out a sigh of relief, feeling a sense of accomplishment for making it this far. Facing the actual day, I naturally felt deep emotions, especially since I had done most of the preparations myself. Suddenly, Justin approached me, looking distressed. He pleaded with me to take off my wedding dress. I was flabbergasted and demanded to know why. Justin said it was obvious, he didn't want to go through with marrying me anymore. I was stunned and asked if he was saying he didn't want to marry me. I couldn't believe it after all the hard work I had put into the preparations while he was out drinking every night. I pressed him on what he meant by suddenly not wanting to have the wedding ceremony. Justin bluntly stated that he had fallen for another woman. I exclaimed that was clearly cheating. He scoffed, saying cheating was such an ugly word and that this was true love. I was appalled and asked who the woman was, guessing it was someone from his company he always went drinking with. To my utter shock, Justin said it was my sister. I was completely confused, as I didn't have a sister. Justin insisted her name was Grace and scolded me for not inviting my own sister to my wedding, saying he never thought I was the kind of person who would do that. I kept repeating that I had no idea what he was talking about since I didn't have a sister. Just then, a young woman walked up and apologized for taking so long to touch up her makeup. Justin gushed that Grace was cute even without makeup. The woman giggled and told Justin to stop embarrassing her. He cooed that she was cute when she was embarrassed too. I apologized for interrupting their flirting, but asked who on earth this woman was. The woman acted shocked, asking if I, her older sister, had really forgotten about her. She complained to Justin that I was always treating her like a stranger. Justin agreed it was terrible and that he never knew I was such an awful woman. I insisted that she was literally a complete stranger to me. The woman brushed me off, saying I must have heard from Justin that they had fallen in love, so I needed to take off my wedding dress and give it to her. Justin confirmed he was sure about this, complaining that I had been annoyingly nagging him every day when he came home lately. He callously said he was relieved to finally be able to divorce me. He declared he wanted to break up with me quickly and have a wedding ceremony with my sister Grace. I was stunned but managed to say I understood and would take off my dress, asking them to leave. The woman cheered, gloating that I must have finally realized I couldn't win against her. I was appalled but held my tongue as they gleefully discussed going to greet the guests while I changed. As they left, the woman mockingly told me to hurry up and get ready to leave. I realized Kristen had been right. If I was going to feel this way on my wedding day, I should have looked into Justin's cheating beforehand. But it was too late for regrets now. I pulled myself together, knowing I first needed to figure out the true identity of this woman claiming to be my sister. The name Grace rang a bell for one person, but it couldn't be. I didn't have time to wallow in sadness. I rushed to explain the situation to the venue staff and apologized to the guests. I apologized profusely to the guests who had taken the time to come, feeling terrible about the situation. Kristen asked if I was okay. I said I was, but that I needed to explain the circumstances to the guests first. Kristen remarked that I was too composed and offered to help. I thanked her gratefully. Suddenly, the woman claiming to be my sister started making a scene, demanding to know why everyone was leaving. Kristen asked if that was the person we suspected. I confirmed it was. The woman protested that the wedding ceremony was about to start and there was delicious food and drinks prepared. I firmly told her that the wedding had already been cancelled, so of course everyone was leaving. She seemed shocked, asking what I meant by cancelled. She complained that this was supposed to be her big day. I bluntly said that's exactly what I meant. Kristen pointed out that it was originally my big day anyway. I explained that the guests had come to celebrate my wedding to Justin, so they would naturally be confused if a different bride suddenly appeared, which is why I had explained the situation to the staff and had them cancel the ceremony. The woman angrily told me not to make decisions on my own. Justin agreed, saying it was cruel to ruin my own sister's big day. I was appalled at how he refused to listen to reason. Kristen noted that anyone could see I was the one being treated cruelly here. Just then, one of the venue staff came over and demanded to know what the woman was doing wearing a wedding dress without permission. The woman retorted that since I wasn't getting married anymore, she would be getting married in my place, and asked if they had a problem with that. The staff member firmly said they did, as I had informed them the wedding was cancelled, so they couldn't allow someone else to hold a ceremony without authorization. Kristen pointed out a stain on the hem of the woman's dress, asking if it was coffee. The woman admitted it was. Kristen asked the staff if this meant the woman would have to pay for the cleaning costs of the dress since she had worn and stained it without permission. The staff confirmed this, estimating it would cost around $500. The woman balked at the price. Justin also protested that there was no way they could pay that much. Kristen Riley noted it was quite cheap compared to the cancellation fee for the wedding. The staff insisted on continuing the discussion elsewhere. The woman frantically said she couldn't possibly pay $500 and begged Justin to pay for it. Justin said he couldn't afford that kind of money either. Kristen turned to me and asked if that woman was who we thought she was. I agreed she probably was. The next day, feeling too restless to be alone, I invited Kristen out for drinks. She asked if I was sure about going drinking the day after such an incident, saying that while she was always happy to go out with me, even I must be exhausted after that. I insisted that was exactly why I needed to drink to cope. I chugged my drink, exclaiming that alcohol was the best thing at times like these. Kristen cheered me on, saying if I was in the mood, she would keep me company as long as I wanted. After a few drinks, Kristen asked about my husband. I explained that Justin had packed a bare minimum of belongings and left, saying he was going to live with my sister starting today. I was appalled, saying that while I knew he was an irresponsible person, I never imagined he would go that far. Kristen brought up the deranged woman from yesterday, wondering what her deal was for pretending to be my sister. She mentioned that while the woman looked different, she was sure she recognized her. I said Kristen was probably right, and that I had checked my high school graduation album when I got home. I told her the woman's name, Grace Williams. Kristen recalled that Grace hadn't been in any school clubs and was the type to spend time alone in the corner of the classroom. She wondered if Grace had any close friends back then. I said I couldn't really remember her having any either. Kristen agreed, saying she didn't remember Grace having any particular connection to me, and that since my appearance hadn't changed much since then, Grace must have definitely recognized me. She wondered what Grace's motive could be for pretending to be my sister and stealing my husband. I wondered if I had done something to make Grace hold a grudge against me. Kristen suggested there was a possibility Grace might be fixated on some incident from our student days. I was shocked, saying I really couldn't think of anything, but even if something had happened back in school, it seemed way too obsessive to try to get revenge for it now that we were adults. I simply couldn't understand it. Kristen emphatically agreed with me, saying that no matter what the reason, crashing someone's wedding like that was unacceptable. She encouraged me not to let it bother me even if Grace was harassing me because of something I had done, and to make sure to get a hefty alimony settlement from both of them. I said Kristen was right, and that I couldn't stay silent after what they had done. I planned to confirm the details and have a talk with them once I had calmed down, but I had already contacted a lawyer today and intended to divorce Justin and properly receive alimony as soon as possible. Kristen cheered me on, saying I worked fast and that's why I was her best friend. She proposed a toast to my new beginning. We clinked our glasses and drank. However, before I even had a chance to settle down, I found myself having a meeting with Justin and Grace just a week later. On my precious day off, I was annoyed to hear the doorbell ring so early in the morning. I was shocked to find Justin and Grace standing there. Justin rudely demanded that I open the door. Grace also told me to open up. I sighed, feeling like this was the worst. I let them in but pointedly said I hadn't told them they could sit down. I grudgingly said it was fine and asked what they wanted. Justin angrily asked what I meant by what they wanted, saying he had heard from the lawyer about my alimony request. Grace chimed in, saying I was being too cruel and asking if I felt sorry for Justin. I told her to stop calling me her older sister. I said her last name was Williams, right? We had been in the same year in high school. Grace seemed flustered and tried to deny it. Justin was confused, saying that wasn't my maiden name. I repeated that I didn't have a sister, that my maiden name was Woodrow, and that I was an only child. If I had a sister, I would have already mentioned it. Justin seemed baffled and asked what was going on. I showed them a photo of Grace Williams. Justin started to say something rude but caught himself. Grace snapped at him, asking what he was going to say. Justin backpedaled, insisting it was nothing and calling her plump figure lovely. Grace said he didn't need to sugarcoat it, as she had been called fat back then anyway. I asked if she was admitting the photo was of her. Grace hesitated and stammered. I mentioned that some of the guests I had invited to the wedding were friends from high school, and asked if she had noticed that. Grace flinched. I said those friends had all remarked that Grace looked like Grace Williams. It would be too much of a coincidence for multiple people to mistake her for someone else with the same name at the same time. Grace was shocked that she had been recognized even though she had changed her appearance a bit. Justin was stunned, asking if she had gotten plastic surgery. Grace cheerfully confirmed she had gotten a little work done on her nose and around her eyes. She said Justin had fallen for her entire face, so what was the problem? Justin hastily said he had no complaints, just that he was a bit surprised. I said I had no issue with it as long as she wasn't causing trouble for others. But pretending to be someone's sister and disrupting their wedding was unacceptable. Grace flinched again. I asked why she had pretended to be my sister in the first place. Grace said she had wanted to tarnish my family's reputation, and couldn't believe I didn't understand that. I was confused, as we had barely interacted in high school. Grace angrily told me not to pretend I had forgotten. She accused me of stealing Thomas, the boy she liked in high school, so she had done the same thing to me as payback. I recalled that I had dated Thomas, but we were each other's first loves. I asked if she had dated him before me. Grace said no, that she had an unrequited crush on him. I felt bad for my poor phrasing and apologized. Grace told me to shut up, saying Thomas was her only youthful romance since she didn't have any friends. She had worked up the courage to confess to him, only to be told he was dating me. She resented me deeply for that. Justin interjected that Grace was really lashing out over nothing. Grace snapped at him, asking why he wasn't on her side. Justin stammered that he had meant to be, since Grace had told him she had been bullied by her older sister Sierra. But he was shocked to find out Grace had been lying about her name and face this whole time. He said it was cruel, as he had believed her. I couldn't help pointing out that Justin was one to talk, as he had betrayed me so thoroughly himself. Justin suddenly pleaded with me to get back together. I was taken aback and asked why he thought that would happen. He said he would be happier with me, even if I nagged a bit, than with an untrustworthy liar like Grace. He wanted us to live together again. I firmly refused, saying it was impossible. Justin begged me to find a way, admitting he didn't want to pay alimony either. I marveled at how he could be so honest about his motives and still expect me to take him back. Grace interjected, asking if Justin intended to dump her. He retorted that of course he did, since she had only gotten close to him for revenge against me. He had no intention of staying with a woman like that. I asked them to please take their breakup conversation outside my house. Grace whined that she really did like Justin, and now on top of breaking up, she had to pay for a wedding dress she barely got to wear. She absolutely hated it. I asked if she thought that was all there was to it. Grace seemed confused. I pointed out that she had cheated with my husband for a petty reason, and on top of that, had ruined someone else's wedding ceremony. Did she really think compensating me for the dress was all she had to do? Grace hesitated, asking if there was something else she needed to do. I said it was obvious, I would be properly requesting alimony from her as well. Justin and her would also be expected to cover the cancellation fees for the venue. I told her to be prepared, as it would likely be many times more than the cost of the dress. Grace cried that she didn't have that kind of money. Justin also protested, saying he had no idea he would have to pay the cancellation fees on top of alimony, especially when he was about to lose his job. He insisted he didn't have the funds. The two of them apologized to me through their tears, but of course I had no intention of forgiving them. Afterwards, I consulted my mother about how to deal with Grace, who was refusing to pay the alimony. It turned out my mother had a connection to Grace's father through the PTA, so she immediately contacted him and explained the situation. Upon learning everything, Grace's father was furious. He took her back to their family home and is making her work from dawn to dusk at the factory he owns. He assured me he would make sure she paid the money. As for Justin, he apparently did break up with Grace as he said he would, but he kept contacting me repeatedly after that, begging me to get back together. I ended up blocking his number. Now we only communicate through our lawyers. It seems he started working night shifts at construction sites in addition to his day job in order to earn money for the alimony and other payments. I heard he is working desperately, even to the point of damaging his health with the manual labor he's not used to. I felt refreshed after divorcing him. I realized I had been forcing myself to be with him. From now on, I'm going to live more for my own happiness. What I can say from my experience is that in life, anyone can face betrayal. However, it is during such difficult times that it's crucial to believe in your inner strength. Revenge may not be the answer, but knowing your worth and valuing yourself is the first step towards moving forward. Life isn't perfect, but we have the power to overcome it. In the end, truth and justice will always prevail.